I think for me it's all about wanting to make change and not being afraid of wanting to make change and talking about change as well. And sometimes you don't necessarily have to be walking around with a placard. It can be just talking and challenging and asking questions. And I've always had an interest in it. I mean, I was a politics student and kind of started from then, maybe 20 years ago, thinking about it then. And actually, and I've just always been, whether it's even in my work, my day job, I've always worked in corporate and financial services, and even in there it's very much a white male environment. And so actually it's then not necessarily just going in and being grateful that you're there, but it's actually like, when there's going to be some change happening soon, and actually being, vocal enough to ask those questions and not be afraid to ask those questions, but also understanding the story as to why change will be positive. It's not just why me or what about me and where's everyone else. It's actually, when I think, studies show, I think there'd be a greater benefit for society if we did this. So there's always that kind of element, and I've also done lots of voluntary work, etc. I've got two boys, a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old, and I found that, as focused as I was on my work, how much work I was doing in my day job, it was almost assumed that when I went on maternity leave that I was only going to want to go to baby groups and to have coffees. And there's nothing wrong with that, great, but actually I remember thinking, gosh, I've got this year off, how long is a course? Before my son came in, it was like actually the first time I'm ever truly going to have a break. What can I get to do? Is there something, even if it's something small, what can I get to do during that time? So anyway, I had my first son, and I was fortunate that I didn't have any major medical issues, or things which naturally you aren't there, you don't necessarily have that full choice. And I just realised, actually I got introduced to the sling, and I think that just changed my world, And then I just realised so much more I could do, and I then realised how much there was an expectation of me versus what I felt I could actually do within that time. And so just I'd done voluntary work. I inquired about whether I could bring my son with me, if as long as there's no kind of safety hazards or etc. And still a lot of the things that I'd wanted to spend more time on when I was working and didn't always have the time, I was like, okay, well actually I can give a bit more time here. I applied to take on a board role, which was for a family charity. I mean, lots of boards do it anyway, but actually I found that I could take my son along, and actually it was actually an added advantage to actually have him with me, because actually it then showed that as a board we were trying to think more broader, have different, a different take on it. I knew I was going to go back to work, so then it was also a case of, well, I know I'm going to go back. What can I do in this time, and how can I still keep my faculties about me and still aware of what's going on? So it was in no way trying to judge. It was more around a choice. Yeah, exactly. And so that's really what I'm just trying to encourage, is that choice, and not this presumption and this notion that's been put on you. It's actually harder to achieve, I think, the getting to all of the baby groups that start at 10 o'clock, and actually it's harder to do the one that's put on you versus the one where you're in charge of it. So what I've really been trying to do is trying to encourage that kind of change. I'd love to get to the point where we have employers that are, when you are going on maternity leave, you are encouraged to do other things, and you're supported to do other things. And you've got some huge organisations where they know they've got a group of women that are going on maternity at the same time. Why not put something on and get them to come together and do something? I just really want to encourage that perception, encourage us as mums to really want to do other things, and it doesn't have to be things that you leave in the house. It doesn't have to be you getting a board role. It can be, I want to set myself a maternity mission through this time, which is about me, and I want everyone else on board with this. This is something I'm going to write a book. It doesn't have to be 20 pages, it could be 100, it could be 5 pages, just something where at the end you said, do you know what, my son or my daughter had this perfect, situation, maternity leave and experience with me. Also, by the way, I did this for me and I was satisfied by it. I felt I accomplished something.